Hello and welcome to Live with Admissions. I am Gabby Lippy, Director of Admission and graduate of the SJND class of 2008. I am pleased to be joined today by Eileen Graybeal, Director of Enrollment Management, Sean Obligacion, Admission Associate, and a group of our current SJND students. It is proud to be a pilot week here at SJND, kicking off today, and we are proud and excited to talk with you about our school. So as we begin each day at SJND, we'll begin now with prayer, led by members of our campus ministry team.
Good morning, SJND. Today is November 9th, 2020. Please join me in prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. As we bring ourselves to a year offering, we give back to about the abundance of blessings you have given us. May our gifts be acceptable in your sight. O Lord, our God, blessing and glory, wisdom and thanksgiving, honor and power and strength be unto you, God, forever and ever. Through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. Holy Mary, Mother of God, and Saint Joseph, pray for us. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Good morning, SJND. My name is Aiden Dudley, and today's daily lift is to practice self-care and do something fun for yourself. Also, happy P2BAP week. Remember to submit your dress of day. Today is Pajama Day. Enjoy your day.
Awesome. Thank you, Campus Ministry. All right, so in our virtual events thus far, all of which we have recorded and are accessible on our website, we have introduced you to various departments, topics, and people in the SJND community. And today, we will take a deep dive into the application and admission process. We've received a lot of questions, which is kind of the basic step-by-step. And so that's what we are going to bring you today. You have likely kind of been in the data gathering phase and are now kind of moving toward that decision to apply. So please know that we are here to walk you through that process, both in our live session today, and we are also accessible to meet one-on-one with families via Zoom at any time. So please keep that in mind as well. We encourage your questions that you may ask throughout the session, both to our admission team and also our students. We encourage you to use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen to ask us questions. And now I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Obligacion.
Thank you, Ms. Lippy. We are super excited to have some SJND students with us this morning who will be here to kind of answer your questions from the student perspective. And they'll be kind of talking about their high school search journeys and experiences later on in the event today. But for now, we would love to have each of the students introduce themselves. So for our SJND students, you can introduce yourself with your name, your grade, what school you went to before SJND, and then also share one reason why you chose to go to high school at SJND. We'll start with Alex.
Hi, my name is Alex. I'm a senior here at SJND. I went to St. Leander's School before coming here. And one reason why I chose SJND was because I really liked the opportunities that were available, specifically the biomedical sciences program that really appealed to me and what I wanted to get out of high school.
Thank you, Alex. And good morning, Kaylin.
Hi, my name is Kaylin. I'm a sophomore. My previous school was St. Felicitas Catholic School. And some of the reasons that I chose SJND was because of the really tight-knit community and kind of the bond that the community has. And then again, like Alex, the academics, like the biomedical sciences program.
Thank you, Kaylin. And Abby, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Abby. I'm a senior. I came from Lincoln Middle School, and I chose SJND to have the, as other people have mentioned, like the closer community, both with other students and with teachers.
Thanks, Abby. And Lena.
Hello, I'm Lena, and I'm a junior, and my previous school was St. Joseph Elementary School. And the reason why I chose St. Joseph is like all my other students, like all the other students, I chose the school for its welcoming community, as well as I had quite a long history here with the St. Joseph community and its property. So, and I just wish to continue staying here for a while. Well, yes.
Great. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. And as Mr. Obligacion mentioned, we'll be asking the students some questions about their own high school search. So when they were in 8th grade, and kind of how they and their families approached this process. So hopefully that perspective will be helpful to you. So now we're going to dive in to our application and admissions process. So both myself and Mrs. Graybeal will be presenting, and please feel free to kind of interrupt us at any time with questions. Great. All right. So the first step is always to start with our online application. It is live on our website currently. I know a lot of students have already started it, which is great. And a couple of deadlines we want you to be aware of. Our early bird deadline for application fee of $75 is coming up on Friday, December 4th. And then our final application deadline for a fee of $115 will be on Thursday, January 7th. So there are a couple of windows in there, and we encourage students, if they can, to do it early so they don't have to worry about it over the winter break. But when you create an application account, you start by entering some basic information about the student and about kind of the household, some basic contact information. And then there will be a application checklist that appears for families. And it will walk you through step by step, kind of each item that is due and the deadlines. So I think that'll be really helpful for you as you're kind of navigating that process. And once a checklist item is complete, you'll be able to see that as well. So the next item on the checklist, kind of after entering that basic information, will be the application fee. There'll be an opportunity to upload a photo of the applicant, because we love to connect faces with names, and then the student essay. So we have 3 short student statements and 1 short essay. And the goal is really just to get a sense of who the student is, what they're interested in and passionate about, because our priority as an admission committee is really to get a sense of the whole student. So it's just an opportunity for the student to kind of express their thoughts, and for us in the admission committee to kind of get to know the student better. And then, as I mentioned, you as a parent and as a family can log back into that parent portal throughout the season. So that's a great place to kind of see where you are and kind of just keep touching base there. And then once the application has been submitted, we move on to the high school placement test. So on the checklist, you'll see the link to register for the high school placement test. You actually register for the test at Scholastic Testing Services, Diocese of Oakland website. And the site is pictured here. All of the Catholic high schools in the diocese are listed. So a student can choose one school at which they have applied to sign up to take the test. All of the high schools are giving the test on the same day at the same time. And when you register, you can select up to 3 different schools to receive the results of the test. So if you sign up to test with St. Joseph Notre Dame High School, you would be able to select 3 other schools to receive the scores, which is great. We will be taking the high school placement test online this year. And I know several students participated in our practice HSPT exams. We had 2 this fall, so hopefully that was helpful. But the test will be online and proctored in Zoom meetings by our SJND teachers. So it'll feel a little bit different for the students, but when they register, I will send them a video tutorial of me kind of walking them through the testing, what each screen looks like so that everyone feels kind of well prepared. And of course, the proctor will be there live to assist the students as well. The test timer is kind of built into each student's testing website. So our proctors are merely there to help students log in and make sure they're good to go and then answer questions throughout the testing. But the student timer is actually based on their own kind of computer screen. So it lets each student kind of work through the test at their own pace, which is great. And the results of the HSPT will be emailed to the email that was used when creating the account. And that will be received along with admission notification at the end of March. And how to prepare. A lot of students actually have emailed us with this, kind of how do I prepare for the test? So if you've been able to do a practice exam, I think that's a great way to start, just giving students that kind of confidence of knowing what the timing feels like, kind of what questions to expect and so forth. But we also have a couple of prep books that we can recommend and just kind of recommend incorporating a few questions a day, maybe into your afternoon homework, just kind of getting familiar with the way the questions are asked. Can be helpful in just kind of building student confidence around testing. We know that this year of distance learning has been challenging for students and for teachers. So our admissions committee is prepared to be, knows that going in and prepared to be a little bit flexible when kind of analyzing the results of this test. And that's why this is not the only factor that we look at. Just going to check to the Q&A here. This is a great question, actually. If we have already filled out an online application form and paid the $75 early bird fee, are the student essays due on December 4th or January 7th? That's a great question. So the student essay must be completed by January 7th. So that's kind of the end of our application deadline. So yes, if you've already filled it out and paid for the early bird, the essay will be due on the 7th. But of course, we encourage students to finish it early if possible. Great, okay. So we'll move on now to our transcript and recommendation process. So on the checklist, you will see a transcript form that you may print out. It's a PDF, so you can print it or email it as an attachment to your current school. I know each school handles that a little bit differently, so kind of checking in with your teachers or the main office can be helpful. But that release form just is a sign off from you that the school is able to release your students' 7th and 8th grade transcripts and any standardized test scores they may have taken to our admission office. And that can be emailed to admissions@sjnd.org or of course mailed to us, whatever is easiest for the school. And then on the checklist, you will see 3 online recommendation requests. So there'll be a principal or counselor recommendation, an English teacher recommendation, and a mathematics teacher recommendation. And you, as the student or the parent, are able to enter the appropriate principal or teacher email address, and it will automatically send that recommendation request to the teacher or principal via email. And once that is completed by the teacher, it will reflect as completed on your checklist. There's also an option for families to send a reminder if you notice that it hasn't been completed yet. But we do that as a deadline of February 4th. So hopefully offering kind of plenty of time there for teachers to, we know that they're doing these for lots of different students. So hopefully that window works for them. If for some reason, I know some schools this year are taking classes a little bit differently. So if you have a question about your unique situation, I know some students at the public school may not be taking a certain class this semester. So you can always feel free to reach out to us and we can kind of talk through that as well. Great, and now we're going to pass it over to Mrs. Graybiel.
Good morning, families. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to be talking about a few categories, and the first one we'll start with is tuition assistance. So the tuition assistance deadline gets to be a little bit confusing because everyone's trying to manage the deadline for the early bird and the application in January, but the deadline for financial aid is February 8th. So you have some time. And those guidelines are actually on our website as well. And you need to complete a FACTS application, FACTS acronym. You need to complete that. That is an agency we work with that's a financial evaluation type organization. They will ask you several questions on their application. You need to upload last year's tax return, not 2019, 2018, I think now works. Maybe it's 2019. It'll have that definition on there. And when that's all uploaded, they then evaluate the financial need. And what's really important on that form is there's a little box, an empty box where you actually get to tell your story. Sometimes the tax return and the bills we pay each month aren't telling the real story of what we're challenged with as in a financial situation as families. So please take the time to put the detail if there's a unique situation about your life in that box. Once that's submitted, they then come back to us and they make a recommendation, or basically they say, here's the need we think this family has. That doesn't mean it's concrete that just because they say X amount of money that's all you would get. We then take that information as a school and we evaluate the need, we evaluate what we have available, and kind of build a pathway that way for tuition assistance. So that's for financial aid, tuition assistance. If you have any interest in tuition assistance, you need to complete that form. There are other opportunities to either get separate amounts or add those amounts, which are two agencies that we work with. One is called Achieve and one is called Bay Scholars. Again, both those applications are on the website, our website. Bay Scholars is what we call a bridge scholarship. So that's an amount where a student applies, and if they're selected, they're given $3,500 per year for the 4 years that they're at St. Joe's. And that's across all, that's a financial need-based application. There's no interview with them or anything like that. You just fill out the application, you file the paperwork they want you to file, and then they evaluate the need. So you could potentially get financial aid and Bay Scholars. So you could technically get both. It's not like if you get financial aid, you only get financial aid and you don't get Bay Scholars. The second program we work with is called Achieve, and Achieve is a program for first generation male students. So it's not female. The female students are in the connection with Holy Names High School. That is how the founder of Achieve works. She goes for all girls schools for the girls. And in San Francisco, she has Reardon and Mercy, which are now a merged school. Used to be a girls' school and a boys' school. That program is also an application, financial based need, and first generation college. Now, if one parent went to college, but the other one didn't, you can still apply. And if a parent went to a junior college, not a 4-year degree, you can still apply. And then Achieve will do an evaluation. And if you're selected, they bring you in for an interview, parents and student interview with them at our school with our principal Guevara as well. And then they determine selection. If you are selected, they pay a very large portion of your tuition, and St. Joe's also contributes to the tuition support, and they look at what you potentially could afford to pay. In addition to financial support, they also provide tutoring services. They have weekly meetings. There is a component of commitment to this program, which is cultural activities that they need to attend. They work directly with their college counselor at our school, but also a program within Achieve. So they help them with college applications. They help them with colleges that are in support of their program or take on college type programs. So financial support can continue into college. It's an excellent program, and it is a very close program to St. Joe's, and we work very closely with them. So those are the 3 programs. And then we have a merit-based opportunity, which are awards like the Presidential Scholarship. And the Presidential Scholarship for us is a $12,000 scholarship issued over 4 years, so $3,000 per year. So you could technically, if the need was there, be able to get tuition assistance, base scholars, and you could still be an awardee of the Presidential Scholarship. So it isn't as if you have to apply for or that you only get one. The Presidential Scholarship you are asked to apply for based on some criteria that we determine, one of which is that you receive 80% or higher on your high school placement test and that you have a 3.5 grade point average for 7th and 8th grade. If you have that, you will be invited to apply for the Presidential Scholarship. One recommendation I make in regards to this merit opportunity is sometimes people look at that opportunity and say, well, I don't really have the financial need, so I don't want to take it from someone who might. We actually take all that into consideration when we're awarding the awards. It is a merit-based scholarship. So I encourage you, if there isn't a financial need, but you are selected to apply for the Presidential Scholarship, we again take all that into consideration. You should apply for the merit opportunity. Then there are other smaller scholarships that are not ones for you to apply at this point. We do have one that's a 4-year scholarship called AYA for female, Hispanic, female application, but it is only one given every 4 years. So that is not one that's due at this point. We also have one that's called a mission scholarship, which would be a relationship or communication that we have with the elementary school and the elementary school principals and teachers. And maybe we've experienced it with you in your application, how you did your essay, all kinds of pieces that are taken into consideration for those. Those are smaller awards ranging anywhere from $2,000 to $8,000. We also have a principal scholarship. So if you are asked to apply for the Presidential Scholarship, and there's a certain number of those issued, and we see just a really strong strength or it's right on the edge, your application for the Presidential is right on the edge, you may be able to obtain a principal scholarship, which is an $8,000 scholarship, which would be $2,000 per year. So it's a lot of information. I know that we can talk to you personally about that as well, but you can receive multiple pieces of what I've described. And if you have any questions, you can let us know. Most importantly, the application deadline for FACS is February 8th. You will be, if you're invited to apply for the Presidential Scholarship, you'll be given a deadline at that time. So as one of the options that we have is really to continually provide information to our families. So this Thursday evening is a financial aid information session. And we would encourage you to sign up to attend. It is on our website. It will be very specific, more detailed, and more Q&A opportunity. It is not a recorded session. It is a personal interaction, so you can ask questions, live questions, and we can have dialogue around financial aid. So I encourage you to sign up for that today. And then, so that completes the tuition assistance explanation. The next area that we focus on, and I believe not all schools do it in this certain way, but the way that do it all inclusive, but the way that we do it is we have family interviews in January once the application is complete. The interview week for us is January 19th, 2021 through January 23rd. The purpose of the interview is character. It's an opportunity for you to interview us because you will interview with one of our faculty members. It will be a student interview for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then it will be inclusive of the parent, at least one parent, if not both, to finish the interview, which will take in total about 30 minutes. If you are a documented learning difference student, when you apply, please select the box on the application that you are a documented learning difference student. There is no negative implication. I know we talked to lots of families and people are worried that that will look negative. It does not look negatively at all. It just gives us the information we need to provide you what you need. So if you apply with the documented learning difference box and you have a documented learning report, you submit that at the time that you submit your application. You can upload that to us. And then we have you interview with the documented learning difference counselor. So we have a learning differences counselor who is dedicated to students with documented learning reports. And that interview would be all together, family and student, and it's a longer interview because we want to make sure that we provide you everything you need to know to determine the support that your child needs both inside and outside of school. It's a wonderful program, and it's one that we have really good success with. That counselor then explains to you how the program works once you become a student. Those interviews are done also in that same week. They might be done around that same week because they're longer. And so they have to be scheduled with families when it works for them, but they will reach out to you directly to schedule those interviews. And then we will actually communicate and track with you the attendance. And if there's any challenge, we can obviously help in that way. And then that's also included on the checklist. It's currently hidden, but it'll open up in January because that's the way that checklist technology will work. And then what that then takes us to is once we complete the financial aid application and the student application and the interviews, then we go what I call into lockdown, which is after that period. That's when we start going into the evaluation process, where we look at all the applications, where we meet with the committee. We read through the applications, as Ms. Lippy mentioned. We actually don't just look at the HSPT. We have multiple things that we look at, and it takes time to do a thorough evaluation. So the next notification you will hear from us will not be until March 19th. That includes results of your high school placement test. Those will be given to you at the date of March 19th. Online, you'll get an email a few days before with the way that you would log on to find out your acceptance status. And it's on Friday, March 19th at 3 o'clock, I believe is the time we set for sure still. Yeah, 3 o'clock, you'll be able to log on. So even when you get your notification to log on, if you try to log on before that time, you won't be able to. But as of March 19th at 3 o'clock, you'll be able to log on and find your acceptance status. This piece that I'm going to tell you is really important when you're looking at schools. For St. Joseph Notre Dame High School, when you are given the acceptance of March 19th, if you are accepted, that acceptance is yours until Saturday, March 27th. So you have a week to make that decision. You have a week to evaluate, talk about it with your family, see what's right for you. And by noon on March 27th, if you do not select St. Joseph's as your high school, that's when we will open up the wait list. We don't open it up during the week. You're not first come, first serve. That slot is yours. And I know when you're looking at schools, that's a kind of a chaos that people start to feel as it gets close to that deadline, like what's going to happen. And other schools will say that it's first come, first serve, and other schools will maybe send you notifications ahead of time, which we don't do because we just think that you deserve, and the process should be that the respectful process should be that you have time to review it as a family. Once March 27th at noon hits and you haven't applied to us, then yes, we will remove that option as locked to you, and it will become an opening of our wait list. So I hope that's helpful information, and I will now have Ms. Lippy go from here.
Thank you. Yeah, so we have a couple of live questions that have come in. Firstly, our middle school has a new principal and we don't really know our counselor because of remote learning. Would it be acceptable to get a recommendation letter from a third teacher instead of principal or counselor? So it kind of depends on the school that your student is currently attending. If your student is attending a private or Catholic school, this process is pretty regular for them. So we do ask for the principal or counselor to do a recommendation. If your student is attending a charter or public school, recommendations are strongly encouraged but not required because those parties are not required to write them. So in that case, actually, and in all cases, if you have an additional person that you would like to write a recommendation, we are happy to accept it. It won't be on the checklist, but you can feel free to have any teacher email admissions@sjnd.org if they just simply want to write kind of a letter. I know students have great connections with certain teachers, so we're happy to include that in the review process as well. And then secondly, do we sign up for family interviews online? Will this be done via the student checklist? So yes, it's currently hidden. Typically, we would invite all of you onto our campus to meet with teachers, but that may need to look a little bit different this year. So we're just kind of holding back that piece from the checklist currently until we're ready to schedule those. But yes, it will be an item that appears on your checklist. You'll see a calendar of available slots and be able to choose what works best for your family. And we will make sure to email each applicant when it is time to schedule those in January. A third question here. If financial circumstances change, assuming our student is accepted in the second or third year of high school, can we apply for financial assistance later? So the answer to that, I'll let Mrs. Graybiel.
Sure. Absolutely. So even when you apply for financial aid, if you apply for financial aid as a freshman, you still have to apply each year. So it's always a refresh, revisit, always to see how everybody's doing. Sometimes you need it in your ninth grade year. You may not need it. Sometimes you need more in the second, third, or fourth year based on financial situation. You can always apply for financial aid.
Thank you. Great. Feel free to keep typing questions in for the rest of our session. Finally, before we move into kind of our student portion here, just another reminder to stay connected with us. I know there was a question I typed in earlier about how do you sign up for meetings. So myself, Mrs. Graybiel, and Mr. Obligacion each have a meeting calendar. So you can look at our available slots and we can set up a Zoom meeting, or if you prefer a phone call, we'll usually check in with you after you schedule and see what works best. Our goal is to be present to you. So if you want to bring your student along, we're happy to just get to know you better and talk about maybe your unique circumstances or unique questions that you prefer to ask in that type of environment. So now we're going to move on to our student Q&A, and Mr. Obligacion is going to kick that off for us.
Thank you, Ms. Lippy. Yes, as I mentioned earlier, we have our students on here today and we would love to engage them and kind of have them talk about their experiences, their high school journeys as students at SJND. So if you have any questions for our students regarding why they chose SJND or how they got to that decision, you can go ahead and input them into the Q&A feature. And to start us off, the first question that I would love for our students to answer is, what were you and your family looking for in a high school during your high school search journey? We can go ahead and start with Abby.
Yeah, so for my family and I, it was really important, as I'm more introverted, that I could have teachers that were super approachable and that I could develop a connection with. And I shadowed, and through that process, like the person I was shadowing, I got to see their connection with their teachers and realized that that was something that I also wanted. So that was our big pushing point for SJND.
Thank you, Abby. And how about Alex?
I think for me and my family, the main thing was making sure that I go to a high school that has a very broad range of opportunities available for me to, explore new interests, but also delve into what I liked at the time. So I think that was a very big thing for my family. And another big thing was, again, that financial aid factor and thinking about, how would I get to school every day? Would it be possible for my family? Would it be sustainable? And I think thinking through that, that's how we ended up at SJND.
That's great. Thank you, Alex. And Kaylin, how about you?
So for me coming into SJND, I was in a little bit of a unique situation because my sister had already been at the school for 3 years, so my family was very comfortable and familiar with the school. So we already knew that the academics, the athletics were very good, the clubs, the extracurriculars, and that kind of community feeling. We already like knew within our family at St. Joe's. So the decision for me was very easy to make because I had already seen, you know, my sister's experience at the school and how great that experience was for her.
Thank you. And Lena.
My situation was quite similar to Kaylin, as my cousin just finished high school when I came in, and my sister already graduated as well. So I knew the area very well, and I also really liked the religious values that the religious values, leadership opportunities that the schools, and I just really love that, as well as the deep connections with the teachers, as well as good concepts and understanding in each of the curriculums.
Thank you, everyone. Again, just another reminder, if you have any questions for our students or would like to know about how they approached their decision to go to SJND, you can enter them in the Q&A as well. The next thing I would love for our students to answer, some of you kind of talked about this, of course, during your high school search journey, but what kind of was that final push, or what was the information that really helped you make your final decision to go to SJND? So kind of what pushed that over for you? And we can start with Alex.
Yeah, I think the decision to go to SJND was really put on me, and for my family, it was not their decision. They really wanted it to be my own. And I think what really made me go to SJND again was the biomedical sciences program. Knowing that I can participate in such a unique opportunity, that was really what made me decide to come here.
Thank you, Alex. And how about for you, Kaylin?
I think the final push for me was definitely that I already kind of felt comfortable on the campus, and I already kind of felt like I felt familiar with kind of how the school worked and the different programs within the school. So yeah, I think that definitely like helped with my decision, that I felt like it would be like a comfortable and safe place for me to go to high school.
Thank you. And Lena.
The last push was kind of seeing how my cousin turned out after graduating. He went to UC Davis, and he's doing very well for himself. And I kind of wished for that for myself when I graduate from SJND as well.
Thank you, Lena. And Abby.
Yeah, as I touched on, it was really like the shadow experience, and then the open houses, how much the school like focused on what I wanted out of the experience versus like how great the school was. It was very much like, how is this school going to apply to me? And then seeing all the different facets that I could go down is what pushed me to finalize my decision.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. We have a question in the Q&A. How does it feel in terms of social adjustment for an applicant coming to SJND who doesn't live in Alameda and who is coming from a private independent school? Does anyone want to start kind of answering that question?
I would just say, I'll add one piece before the students, because I think these students haven't come from an independent school. But one of the things we want you to know is that about 60% of the students who go to St. Joe's do not live in Alameda. We do have a transportation transportation opportunity for them in Oakland and in San Leandro to have transportation. So because of that, whether they're coming from a public school off campus, independent school off campus, or even a Catholic school off campus, we realize that there's a transition socially. So there are programs in place to assure that that connection happens. We have something called Link Crew, which I'll let the students talk to you about. We also have opportunity, because we're a small school, to monitor the social interaction and to see how student life is happening, how club membership is happening, and work with the students in that way. So if any of the students want to talk about Link Crew, or if you're part of Link Crew or have been part of Link Crew, maybe you could talk about how that program works.
Yeah, I can go. So I've been a Link Crew leader now for like the past 2 years. And what we do is each of us is assigned to a group, probably about 8 to 10 students. And it's our job to help facilitate those students into the social life. So at the beginning of the year, we have frequent meetings, and we have an O day, which is where like an orientation. So all the students, well, this year it was on Zoom, but normally like come to campus and we play games, we tour the school, so that then like first day they feel comfortable, they can open their locker. And then throughout the year, we continue to have meetings to make sure that socially and academically everything's going okay. And then the meetings also serve as a way for the students to have like a more concentrated interaction, so that hopefully then when they show up to class on the first day or whatever, they see a familiar face. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Alex, do you maybe want to talk about maybe social adjustment at SJND in general, as someone who also comes from outside of Alameda?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I come from a school from San Leandro. And so coming into SJND, I didn't really see being from Alameda as a very big hindrance to my ability to connect with other people, because I think Abby talked about this before, but the first few days you spend connecting with your new peers in events like O-Day, orientation, and all that stuff. And I think that did a really good job at making it so that everyone's on a level playing field. Everyone knows that we don't really know each other that well. And so it's just a way to, connect with one another from scratch. And so it's not really like, I didn't really feel that because I didn't come from Alameda that, I wouldn't be able to make friends. It was just everyone came from different places, and we're all here now, and then we all can make friends starting again.
I would also say that because it's a smaller school and the admissions process is so thorough, that most of the students are very like-minded on campus, and they all have a lot of goals, whether that be athletics or academics or leadership. So I think it's very easy to find people who you can relate to and who have the same interests as you, because everybody is kind of like on that same path.
Thank you. We have another question in the Q&A. If any of the students participate in athletics or other after-school activities, do you have any difficulty balancing the demand of participating in those activities and the amount of homework assigned to you? So if you all want to take the opportunity to talk about your experience in athletics at SJND or other extracurriculars, how do you balance those things with homework and studying and schoolwork and things like that? And we go ahead and start with anyone who wants to start.
I can go ahead. So I don't do any athletic with SJND. I ride horses outside of SJND. And that's 4 days a week. And, like we're balancing schedules right now because of everything going on, but there's study blocks incorporated into it. So during those times I sit down, I find a quiet classroom and just try to go through as much homework as I can. And then the other thing I've noticed is because there's such like different like levels of how challenging courses are, then I'm able to find courses that fit what I want. So if I don't want to spend, the extra time in math, I don't have to take the honors math class, and balance it also that way. So that's how I do it. But
Thank you, Abby. And how about Lena? Do you want to talk about a little bit of your balance with extracurriculars?
Yes, for me, I participate in the women's tennis. So, for me personally, I did not have any difficulty balancing out extracurricular and my academics, as I try to do as much as I can during lunch times if possible, and as well as flex periods or collabs, and try to get as much homework as I can. And if there is a compromise with athletics, I would always contact my coach through TeamSnap or any other athletic applications to let them know I am unable to go to any practices or games due to academics.
That's great. Thank you, Lena. Kaylin, how about you?
So yeah, I'm not involved within athletics at SJND specifically, but I am a competitive athlete, a competitive cheerleader. And so this year my situation is a little bit different because I'm actually cross competing. I'm on 2 teams at my gym rather than 1. And even with being on 2 teams, I still feel like my work and my classes are manageable, and I am in honors classes and an AP class. And our schedules at the gym because of COVID are more limited. Like, we're not in the gym as much, but even if we were fully in the gym, I still feel like it would be very easy to manage, just because the counselors really work with us a lot with our schedules, and we're really able to choose what will work for us, and what we need. And even then, the workload is, as long as you're willing to put in that time and energy to get it done, it's pretty easy to kind of balance your schedule.
Thank you. And Alex.
Yeah, so I am involved in various clubs, and then I also play on the SJND men's volleyball team. And so it is really kind of difficult at times to manage everything and to manage the workload, and it does get kind of stressful. But I think part of what helps me is, again, those periods that are integrated throughout the day to help us, that give us time to focus on our work and to get things done. I think that is really helpful. So it's not just class after class after class each day. And then also, I think another benefit of being from a small, tight-knit community is that the teachers know what's going on campus all the time. Like, they know what events are being put on and stuff. And so I think that makes them very accommodating. At least in my experience, they're very accommodating. Every time I feel stressed or I need extra support, they're always there. And so that really helps me manage everything.
I think a couple pieces that I would just kind of add to that. Thank you, students. You always do an impressive job to me. For high school, when you transition from grade school to high school, oftentimes it becomes a practice every day. So if you're an athlete, or if you're in theater, or you're in speech and debate, or whatever programs you're on, that's a transition sometimes for students, that it is every day. And it's after school every day. So even our transportation program allows for students to either leave school within an hour after it's out, or stay until a later period because they're involved in something outside of school. But as Alex mentioned, teachers and coaches are involved in watching and monitoring the grades of students to make sure, because you have to have a certain grade point average to participate. If you fall below a fall below, I think it's a 2.0, you can't participate, but we don't even want you to get close to that. So there's a monitoring that happens frequently, and some coaches, some sports, just based on their timing, will have study programs together, or if somebody on their team is struggling, they'll figure out a way to help each other happen. And as the students mentioned, in a small school, you can make this happen. If you're involved in programs outside of school, that as Kaylin mentioned, which are club programs or programs outside of school, that's typically daily too. And that's the same kind of balance that the families work on with the school, and the school works with the student. The student body, our school wants students to be involved. And so we like them to manage balance, be involved in things where they're not, killing themselves, but that they're engaged. And so it's something that we also support.
Thank you, Mrs. Graybiel. If anyone has any last minute questions in the Q&A, we would love to answer them. But the last question that I have for our students is, can you talk a little bit about your relationship with your teachers? What is the student-teacher relationship like at SJND? How do you engage with them? How do you go to them for help if you need it? And we can start off with Kaylin.
Yeah, so for me personally, every interaction I've had with a teacher has always been positive. I've never had a very like negative experience with a teacher. And most of my teachers have always been very understanding if I come to them with a question or with a concern or with some kind of conflict. They've always been very open-minded to that. And so, yeah, I always feel like there's always been very open communication between teachers and students, and also always a very like positive relationship between teachers and students.
Yeah, and I can go ahead and go next. And for me, like the student-teacher relationship is something that I always try to work on because it's, if I'm struggling, that's where I go straight to the teacher. But I've also had much more like personal relationships with teachers. So just for an example, I am really like interested in photography. So Mr. Fogo, the photography teacher, when lockdown hit, he realized, yeah, we're all kind of stuck at home. So he sent me like links to YouTube videos of like, hey, you can practice this at home. Not even necessarily so I could get ahead in his class, but just because he understood the situation we were all in and knew that that was something I would enjoy. So.
Yeah, and going off after Abby, I think the teachers, especially during distance learning, really tried to make it so that they're replicating the sort of interactions we had on campus. And I think the teachers, at least my teachers personally, have been really open to communications, whether that be through answering emails really fast or being attentive to their Google Chats, just so that it feels like we're not separated from one another. And when we reach out and when we ask for questions or whatever, when we just want to catch up, they're always there to communicate with us. And a lot of teachers also host like Zoom, sort of not office hours, but during flex, they host open Zoom calls. And so that makes it really easy for me to just jump in the same way where I would jump in a classroom if I ever had a question. It makes it easy to just connect with a teacher real quick and just, maybe even if I just want to have a conversation, that makes it really easy too. So I still feel like even in distance learning, we're very connected.
Thank you. And Lena, how about your relationship with your teachers?
My relationship with my teachers, as Alex and the other students say, they're always very good with communication. That's a very key thing in these relationships with our teachers. And they're very understanding, especially of certain situations, like if our computer running down or if Wi-Fi isn't doing well. They're very understanding and would always plan to do something else or plan another meeting with the students. As in on campus, teachers again are very understanding. They would be sometimes very lenient, though only in certain situations, as well as would always check in with the students for any questions or just how they are doing in general.
Thank you, Lena, and thank you, students. Today, as I mentioned, is the start of Proud to be a Pilot Week, and today's dress up day is actually pajama day, and all of these lovely students put on their SJND polos for us. So thank you for that. And thank you, participants, for your questions. For our students, we do have a couple more about our admissions process, both centered around the high school placement test. Do you think SJND will consider the HSPT score differently this year for students' qualification due to its administration online? Yes, so we've already been in discussion with our principal and our admissions committee about how we're going to evaluate applications this year due to, some schools taking a certain amount of classes, the high school placement test being online. So yes, it's definitely a consideration that we're going to make a little bit differently this year. And it is why we rely so heavily on all of the factors of our application process. Similarly, is there a minimum HSPT score that you use for serious consideration? And there is not. We do not have a minimum score or a score range. Our goal, we assess each student individually, which is really important, and we balance each aspect of the admissions process. So, you know, some students have a lot of anxiety when they're taking tests, particularly standardized tests. And so that's where we can balance with the transcript and the recommendations from the teachers, kind of how are they as a student each day in the classroom. So yes, this year is definitely unique. There's a lot of flexibility that we are going to be taking as we review applications. And of course, any specific concerns or information you want to pass along, you can definitely do that with us individually. But yes, please know that we will be looking at everything a little bit differently this year. Another question here, will the practice HSPT score be considered? No, the intention of the practice HSPT was just that, to give students practice and experience. So we assured each student before testing that we will not consider that score. It's not something that the admissions committee sees either. So yeah, that was really just to give students that opportunity of practice. Thank you for those questions. And just quickly want to share with you some of our upcoming events. So tomorrow, if your student has not already participated in a virtual visit, we have our last one of 2020 coming up tomorrow morning at 8:30. It includes interaction student to student with our current SJND students. We have a teacher who will be doing a sample class, and then of course just sharing some admissions information and allowing prospective students to kind of get a sample of what it will like to be in the school. A lot of 8th grade classes have done this already, but if your student hasn't, please feel free to have them join. As Mrs. Graybill mentioned, we do have a financial aid Q&A this Thursday at 6:30. It'll be a casual Zoom meeting, so not a webinar, and really just to provide information and answer questions. And then we have 2 information sessions coming up. One on the 18th focused on our visual and performing arts department. So being able to hear from art, music, theater, and choir representatives, students, and faculty members. And then on December 1st, a session focused on student life, clubs, sports, and campus ministry. So we hope you're able to join us for those, and we hope they provide you with great information. And then finally, thank you all for participating today. Thank you for your questions and for students sharing your experience with us. We will be available to meet individually with families, but otherwise we look forward to seeing you at an upcoming event. Thank you and go Pilots.